got the wings so they can go. They got the urge for going when meadow grass is turning brown and summertime is falling down, winter's closing in. The blankets up to my chin. I'll lock the vagrant winter out and I'll hold my wandering in. I'd like to call back summertime and have her stay for just another month or so. But she got the urge for going, so I guess she'll have to go. She got the urge for going when meadow grass was turning brown and all her empire's falling down, winter is closing in. And I get the urge for going when meadow grass is turning brown and summertime is falling down.
Welcome and good morning, everyone. My name is Justin Wilson. I use he, him pronouns, and it is my pleasure to welcome you to this multi-generational, extra comfy, wumpy, cozy, wozy service at the First Universalist Church of Rochester this morning. If you are here for the first time, we especially welcome you. We're not usually all in pajamas. Thank you for making it to our worshiping community. Please remain after for coffee hour in the Clara Barton Lounge behind us or online in the same Zoom link for connection and fellowship. There is a visitor's form that can be found on the back of your order of service or online in the Zoom chat by clicking the link. And there will be forms in the Clara Barton Lounge. Please fill this out so we can offer you a welcome beyond what we can offer you here this morning and keep you updated with announcements and goings-on here at the church. Just a reminder, if you have a big joy or sorrow in your heart this morning, we invite you to write it in the notebook here, on the chancel, or in the Zoom chat before the chalice is lit. So now would be a good time online or in person to write those in the notebook before the chalice is lit. I want to turn your attention briefly to some of the announcements in your order of service. We have the eco-justice sale of plastic-free laundry supplies starting today, and there's a meeting in the chalice room after service. We also have the immigration justice meeting today in the sanctuary after service. A FIAC survey will be going out to the whole church soon, so look forward to that. If you ordered a Side with Love or UU t-shirt, those have come in, so see me. And as a reminder, we are doing weekly food-in gatherings as SNAP benefits are in limbo. Money goes the furthest, but all donations are welcome, so please bring those up, and we'll be collecting those every week this month. Lastly, Tuesday is Election Day. Just a reminder there. So before we take a moment to turn towards our neighbor, let's welcome our online community, offer a wave towards the Progress Pride flag, the camera in the back there. We are happy you are joining us. If you're online, pop a greeting into the chat. We appreciate your patience with us. We've already noticed some technical issues this morning, but we hope we've at least resolved them enough so that you can enjoy our service this morning. And if you're here in person, let's offer a greeting to each other and say hello.
Good morning. On this first ever Pajama Sunday here at First Universalist Church, where we like to do good and have fun. Social media being what it is, I feared appearing today in full pajama gear. So I decided at first to hide my PJs under my old judge's robe, purchased from a choir robe supplier. It's true, that's where all judges get their robes. Under this big, beautiful robe are my blue heart pajamas, the ones I lounge about the house in to get much needed rest after a hard day of being retired. The fabric is sustainable bamboo, and the hearts are appropriate for wearing to a UU church if the need arises. And surprise, I'm actually wearing my cat pajama bottoms. Organizing views. My pretty cats. Pajama Sundays should be no problem for me, as I come from a family of people who bravely dressed in drag decades ago. I shall explain. When my mother was about 13, she simply had to wear lipstick to school in order to be her most beautiful self. But makeup was puritanically forbidden. Mom, of course, wore bright red lipstick anyway, putting it on after leaving for school and wiping it off before getting home. The day inevitably came when she forgot to wipe the lipstick away. Gotcha. Her father, a dignified but fun Cornell professor, decided to embarrass my young mom for her affront to her family. He put on a dress, stockings, pearls, a lady's hat, and of course, red lipstick. Then he mowed the front lawn in their upscale Ithaca neighborhood in full view of the neighbors. Mom thought it was funny, but feigned horror and embarrassment to avoid actual punishment. I can see how Grandpa dared to do this, as he had worn dresses regularly till he was 5, as was the custom around 1900. Breeching, the switch from wearing dresses to wearing pants, was apparently practically a religious sacrament for boys. I couldn't find a photo of Grandpa dressed that way, but I found this one at FDR to back up my story. Hopefully they'll find it. It's really cute. Well, if they can't get it up, it's cute little FDR at age 2 in a white dress with ringlets. Decades later, my paragon of perfection big brother decided to go trick-or-treating dressed as an Hawaiian hula girl. My brother. Mom made him a convincing grass skirt and some flower lace, and he went out topless to confuse, if not scandalize, our small Iowa hometown. I secretly admired him for this bravery back in the 50s. I'm proud to say he is a UU now. Not to be outdone, when I was in 3rd grade, on a cold winter day, I wore pants to school. Horrors! Pants were for boys only. I was sent home at lunchtime, walking a mile each way uphill in the snow. And how it was, just to put on a skirt. I graduated from high school before the no pants for girls rule was changed. And now, since I do not have the courage to continue to wear pajamas in church, I will change to reveal my more standard clothes. Almost abracadabra. I just got back from Key West. This is nothing. I do this knowing this community will accept me any way I am. This is one of the reasons we all come here, where we can express ourselves in ways some may say are outside society's norm, and we will still, of course, be loved and appreciated, not at risk. Come, let us worship together, hopefully wide awake from a good night's sleep, and remembering the risk that some people take just to be themselves. As Rachel, Ian, and little Lillian Baruto come forward to light our chalice at First Universalist, and you light a chalice in your own homes, please join me in our chalice lighting words, spoken in unison. May we be a people of welcome, here to grow in heart, mind, and spirit, and may we reach out to serve our community. Thank you. Please rise in body or in spirit for our affirmation of faith. Love is the doctrine of this church. The quest for truth is its sacrament, and service is prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge and freedom, to serve humanity in fellowship, to the end that all souls shall grow into harmony with the source and meaning of life, thus doing covenant with each other and with all. Now it is time for our offering. Over the ages, this could have been done with stones, shells, feathers, or gold. It would be mischievous of you, indeed, to put some shells, stones, or feathers in the collection plate now. We would prefer cash, checks, or gold, of course. Know that this congregation will use your offering to push the human race forward, undeterred by risk or challenge, toward goals which may be dismissively deemed woke by some, because we have had our rest and are thinking clearly. Please place your offering in the offering basket or give online by scanning the QR code on the back of your order of service. This is also a great time to place visitors' forms in the offering basket. For folks online, please click the link in the chat to give to the First Universalist Church. Thank you for your generosity. This morning's offering will now be gratefully received.
story is adapted from Maureen Wright's Sleep, Big Bear, Sleep. And so if we have any little actors or big actors, in this story, normally it's Big Bear, but we're going to make it Big Bears. But that might also be little bears and medium-sized bears and all the bears. So, does anyone know what bears do in the wintertime? Yeah? They hibernate, which is like a really special kind of long sleep, right? And so they need to go to sleep in the wintertime, or they'll be all off. So the story goes, and you can be my bears, and I'll be Old Man Winter. Old Man Winter from a storm cloud spied his big bear friends on the countryside. He leaned into the earth and softly sighed, "Sleep, big bears, sleep." But the big bears didn't hear very well, and they couldn't sleep in their den in the dell. They thought they heard, as twilight fell, "Drive a jeep, big bears, drive a jeep." And so the big bears yawned as they drove around. Can you drive a jeep? Oh, that's later. You got the idea. That's what we do upstairs too, huh? Drive a jeep. Beep, beep. So the big bears yawned as they drove around in a jeep on a road just south of town. She has a stone. But after a while, they stopped in a park, and an old man whispered as it grew dark, "Sleep, big bears, sleep." But these bears didn't hear very well, and they couldn't sleep in their den in the dell. They thought they heard, as the dry leaves fell, "Sweep, big bears, sweep." Help me? So the big bears went to a house down the street, and they swept each room so nice and neat. But after a while, they yawned again. "Sleep, big bears, sleep." But these bears didn't hear very well, and they couldn't sleep in their den in the dell. They thought they heard as shadows fell, "Leap, big bear, leap." And so the big bears found a frog they knew, leapfrog. And they played leapfrog while the cold wind blew, till all at once they fell to the ground. Oh, now you're up. They fell to the ground. The wind through the trees was the only sound. And Old Man Winter said with a frown, "Sleep, big bears, sleep." But these bears didn't hear very well. They couldn't sleep in their den in the dell. They thought they heard as darkness fell, "Dive deep, big bears, dive deep." So the big bears paddled to a clear blue lake, finding it hard to stay awake. Are you paddling with me? Excellent. They dove deep and swam to the far shore. They had never been so tired before. Their head drooped down and they let out a snore. And Old Man Winter said once more, "Sleep, big bears, sleep." But these bears didn't hear very well, and they couldn't sleep in their den in the dell. They thought they heard as snowflakes fell, "Climb a mountain steep, big bears, steep." So the bears trudged up the mountaintop where the cold wind blew and the temperature dropped. And they sat on a stump at the highest spot and wished for a blanket and a folding cot. And then they stumbled back down with their eyes half shut, so tired they didn't know which end was up. An old man yelled, "Up, yelled, while shaking his head, "Hey there, bears! Did you hear what I said? It's winter time. Now go to bed." And the big bear's eyes were droopy and red. "You could have told us that before," they said. They lumbered nearby to their cozy den and rubbed their eyes and yawned again. They put on their PJs, good job, and blew out the light. Fluffing their pillows, they said, "Good night." Yay! Have you ever had it where you really just needed to sleep, but you couldn't sleep? And you're doing all these crazy things. I remember I used to put my legs up and pretend I was walking on the ceiling. But I really just needed to rest. Oh, thank you. And sometimes I think now as an adult, when I feel really tired for a long time and then suddenly I get sick, that's like Old Man Winter saying, "I told you to go to bed. Now I'm making you go to bed." So one of the things that might be hard to do, but very important, is to listen to our bodies and to the rhythms so that we know what we need, so that we can take care of ourselves. Because if we can't take care of ourselves, then we can't take care and help other people when they need us. So all month long, usually we only do this once a month, but we're doing it all the Sundays in November, and I need your help, Ms. Sharp. Can you grab these foods here and bring them up to the baskets? And if there's anyone else who brought food that hasn't put them up, if you could raise your hand. Oh, I did. Oh, there's someone in the back. Run back there. Run! Oh, and there's food back there. Any other foods? Okay, cool. And then you guys can help with filling these foods up into the baskets. And then maybe even after service, we'll come and try and help whoever takes the food to the food cupboard on Nestor Street to make sure that it's easier for them to get it there into their car. And hopefully there'll be other helpers there to help them get it to the people who really need it. Right? Excellent. It is. There's some really heavy ones, right? Thank you so much. Thank you for your generosity and knowing when you are called upon to help others. But do keep taking care of yourselves as well. Please join me either in going, all of us in singing our doxology, and in some of us going up to children's worship upstairs.
Into this reverent time of sharing the joys and sorrows of our gathered community. If you would like to, you can place a hand over your heart to be able to listen from a heart-centered place. We know so much is going on with the world today, and if you have joys or sorrows to share on the behalf of our local, national, or global community, you are truly encouraged to do so today and in the future. As Trish places stones in the bowl, I will read aloud the joys and sorrows of our gathered community. We share with Jean the joy and the hope to be at a family wedding in Pennsylvania next weekend. And with Joe, we share the sorrow and hardship of a bad cold and the hope that no one else catches it. We share with a member of the congregation sorrow for a fall resulting in surgery and medical care. We share with Eileen sorrow over the diagnosis of her husband Jose with ALS. We share Hal's joy and gratitude to have Ann Rohde here this morning providing music, and joy at spending time with young grandkids out of town. And finally, we share the gratitude with Janice Mary Jones that after 10 years of retirement, for finally having changed a sleep schedule, early to bed and early to rise. And today we also invite you into a community ritual to honor the many joys and sorrows we bring into this space, whether we read them aloud or hold them in the silence of our hearts. So in a moment, those here in person are invited to come forward and drop stones into the bowl. And if you need to remain seated, you can raise your hand and someone will come to you with a bowl to drop your stones in. If you're joining us online, please send a heart emoji in the chat. Let us join now in this collective ritual of honoring the joys and sorrows of us all. Now the circle of our care is drawn larger, may it increase evermore. Let us take a moment for prayer and meditation, followed by some shared silence. I invite you to take a deep breath, to let it out with a sigh, to let your feet find the earth beneath you, or some part of you feel supported by the world, by this community that holds us. Perhaps your eyes fall closed and shoulders fall away from your ears as we take a moment to turn inward. We know that what we hold, however big it is, in the sanctuaries of our hearts, we do not hold it alone. We hold it together. We hold it in common with the spirit of love that holds us all. I don't know who lied to you, but you don't have to earn your rest, morsel by meager morsel, with an unrelenting stream of labors. You are good, whole, worthy of this Sabbath, payment withstanding. Every moment of delicious repose you savor is free of charge. It is your being, not your doing. that grants you holy respite. We all know who lied to you, and the only antidote is to be utterly useless for a time. So let us rest here. Rest here a while. Lay your body and your burdens down to be held by this community. Be still and know your every blissful, quiet breath as a prayer of gratitude for abundant grace. Thank you, we pray. We have all that we need, and so we rest. Amen. Blessed be. May it be so. This month's hymn of contemplation is number 396. I know this rose will open. Two weeks ago, I was away facilitating the gathering of the St. Lawrence chapter of the UU Ministers Association with my good pal, Reverend Douglas from Binghamton. We like to hype each other up at these things, so in some of the downtime we had, we were talking about all of the ways we've supported one another's ministries without knowing it. We decided we should know it, so let's share about it, we said. And I was so happy to share my gratitude at how Douglas totally changed my perspective on the work of ministry a few years ago by explaining to me how mules work. The animal, not like the shoe or the cocktail. And you might be thinking, like, mules work because 5,000 years ago someone bred a horse with a donkey and that's how we got to today where mules exist. But that's not what Douglas was talking about. And in spite of growing up a farm kid, my only context for a mule was Sal from the Erie Canal song. But do you know why they used mules to pull canal boats, he asked, instead of horses, which are bigger and stronger? It's because, according to Reverend Douglas, it's because a horse will work itself to death if you let it. You can keep pushing a horse farther and harder, and many horses will not rest until they collapse and or die. The phrase, stubborn as a mule, it turns out, is a compliment, a positive trait bred on purpose. Because when a mule is tired, she stops. She lies down, she takes the rest she needs, and won't be moved until she has it. Mules are too stubborn to work until they die. And if there's an animal hero we need in this day and age, my friends, I think it's a stubborn old mule. because too often we choose to be horses. We choose to be big bears. We resist our need to take a rest until a rest takes us, like Reverend Michelle said. We can push ourselves through exhaustion as long and as hard as we're able, but rest will win in the end. It will win at the expense of the quality of the work we valued so much. It will win at the expense of our health or our relationships or the sustainability of our communities. At this time of year, every message of the earth is to slow down and rest. The bears and the bees are settling in for a long sleep. The trees are storing up their energy to rest in their roots for the dark season, and the darkness invites us to slow down, settle in, take our own rest. But we big bears don't always hear so well. Rest feels like a risk because it's not a cultural value for us. Extreme devotion to work and productivity is one of the tactics of fascism, but since long before the recent rise in fascism, shame associated with rest has been a cornerstone of capitalist colonialism. Our worth in that system stems from our work, our capacity to work, our willingness to work, the efficiency and effectiveness of our work. It is an extractive system that extracts from us an ever-increasing stream of output. It is not just an expectation in our paying jobs, but in our everyday lives, in our communities. It's a cultural expectation that good character is associated with hard work. How often have you heard someone praised for being a hard worker? Maybe you've offered those praises up yourself. And how often, if ever, have you heard someone praised for being a good rester? Have you ever offered such praises, even to yourself? And yet rest is something we literally cannot live without. Can we start conceiving of a devotion to rest as a positive character trait? Can we praise one another and our deepest selves for being mules stubborn enough to reject a system that would have us work ourselves to death? Maybe this feels like self-care advice rather than a sermon, but this is spiritual practice, learning to refuse to hear the messages of a culture of overwork, learning to find deep and generative rest. Rest is fundamentally why we come to church. Rest is holy, this I know, for the Bible tells me so. Right there in chapter 1, right out the gate, it says God's work was completed, and so they rested for a day. And it says specifically that it was the rest that made the day holy. Readers of the commandments in the book of Exodus are told, remember the Sabbath and keep it holy. Rest is what imbues a day with holiness. And it isn't just those sources of wisdom that call us into the gift of rest. Every part of the earth models for us cycles that include slowness, depth, and rest. Creatures who refuse to rest in the wintertime don't survive it around here. A tree who kept its leaves would topple under the weight of winter snow. A bear or a bee who refused to hibernate would freeze. But we humans are too often held captive by a false idol of work, of busyness. Over and over throughout the Bible, when the people of God are chastised, the Sabbath always comes up. They have forgotten to keep it holy. They've profaned it with work. They've desecrated a sacred time of rest that is meant to belong to divinity. And there is also a modern prophet of rest named Pastor Tricia Hersey. She's a Black liberation theologian who runs the NAP ministry out of Atlanta, Georgia. She and her movement have characterized rest as resistance, which is the title of her book and an excellent read if you're up for it. They are calling for people, all people, but in particular, people whose bodies have historically been subject to overwork, forced work, and uncompensated work, to direct their stubbornness toward rest. Reverend Hersey reminds all her followers that our rest is resistance to a system that glorifies always increasing productivity. She reminds us that liberation from that system doesn't come from some external or supernatural force. It comes through our own bodies. Our bodies are the location of liberation, she says, and so care for our bodies, for all bodies, has to be central to liberatory movements. Rest is resistance, which means rest is a risk. But we don't take the risk of rest because we've worked hard enough to deserve it. We don't even claim rest so that we can be ready to work hard when it's over. We claim rest stubbornly as mules because it is part of the function of our bodies, and our bodies are sacred. Resting is not the reward of work or the fuel for more work. It is an essential element of our being alive. It is part of the core of our humanity, and we do not need to earn a moment of it. As Tricia Hersey says, rest brings us back to our humanness. When I was just starting my first full-time job in ministry, I was working on figuring out a regular schedule. This is a flexible type of work, and because ministers usually work weekends and evenings, the convention for full-time pastors, in this movement at least, is to choose a weekday as a regularly scheduled day off. And as I considered it, a family friend of mine who's been a pastor for some 30 years told me, whatever you choose, don't make it Mondays. I was confused because Mondays seem like a sensible day to take off as a minister. Lots of ministers I know take Mondays off. Sundays are sort of the culmination of our week, and they take up a lot of executive function and emotional energy. And by Monday, we tend to be fairly depleted and sometimes even exhausted, ready to rest. And I said as much to my friend. Exactly, he said. That's why you shouldn't make it your regular day off. You'll be tired physically, emotionally, spiritually. Don't set aside your worst day for yourself and your loved ones. Go in on Mondays, power through, do some little emails and the tasks that don't require too much creativity or patience, and give your best days, not your worst, to the care of your body. He was right. We all deserve to save the best for ourselves and our families. We all deserve not just the periodic cessation of work, but good rest. We know this if we've ever spent a tired afternoon scrolling mindlessly through the internets or zoning out on the couch. It is not often that we feel better after that kind of rest. It doesn't refresh or regenerate, right? We don't just deserve rest, we deserve good rest, holy rest. Not a disconnected numbness or dissociation. Good rest, spiritual rest, is a deep connecting to ourselves, to one another, to the world. And I think this call to good rest, these whispers from Old Man Winter, are a profoundly spiritual call. Good rest is not just reclaiming our own time, but reclaiming divine time, a holy time. And maybe that is why divinity has had to shout at us through the ages, and the bees and the bears and the trees and the whisper of Old Man Winter, in the voices of all the prophets of old and those preaching to us now, that rest is sacred if we are stubborn enough to keep it holy. Reverend Hersey describes this kind of holy rest as a portal to imagine, invent, and heal. Her movement is about more than a weary people's need for physical rest. It's about the power of rest. It has a power in what it communicates to systems of control, and it has an inherent power. Good rest, quality rest, is a space for bodies and spirits to heal, for creative energy to grow, for play to be possible, a space for dreaming. Yes, we are called to do the hard and tiring work of building justice in a hurting world, Reverend Hersey says, but rest is the place where we can dream of the world as it could be. Rest holds all our possibility for healing from injustice and imagining a reordering of the world. It is a risk to set aside time that is for nothing at all but rest, because we live in a culture that demands exactly the opposite. It is so hard to answer the question Hersey poses to her congregants: how will you be useless today? Right? It's a hard question to think about. How will you be useless today? We have inherited an American ethic of productivity that frames work as wholesome, moral, and good, and rest as lazy and degenerate. But our prophets and our spiritual texts tell us otherwise. Our bodies tell us otherwise. The wisdom of the earth itself tells us otherwise. So what does good rest look like when we big bears are finally ready to listen to our deep whispering need for it? How do we find it? Well, psychological research on avoiding and recovering from burnout shows that good rest has 3 consistent qualities, and I think we should consider them. Things that fill our emotional cups. Things that fill our social or relationship cups. And an orientation or reorientation toward purpose. Confronting what our inner voice has to say about work is the beginning of real rest, the kind that fills our emotional cups. We have all been trained up in this ethos that work is admirable and laziness is a sin. So we need to challenge the source of any impulse in us to categorize rest as wrong. We need to critically examine the internal value we assign to things like efficiency, productivity, hustle, labor, and the stigma we place on things like idleness, slowness, uselessness. We need it because our bodies are the location of liberation, and rest is a bodily need. And we need it because all bodies are the location of liberation. And it is profoundly ableist to hold a moral code that says worth is derived from work, from what we are able to produce. Many holy, worthy, and whole bodies do not yet, or not anymore, or will not ever, have the capacity for productive work that serves capital. Their bodies are the location of our liberation as well. Our value, all of us, is contingent on our being, not on our doing. So we start by teaching our inner voice that the idea of laziness is a scam of the ableist system of colonialist capitalism. Laziness doesn't exist, we remind ourselves. Taking a rest when rest is needed, taking rest as a regular and immovable spiritual practice is good. Refusing to work when it is time for rest is not immoral. God himself did it. And we need to recognize that much of our exhaustion in modern times is not primarily physical exhaustion. Most of us haven't tilled the fields for 12 hours, though if you are someone who's working 12-hour shifts of physical labor, yes, go take a nap. For most of us, it is a soul weariness we need a rest from. It is emotional exhaustion. It's a constant feed of worldwide heartache that tires us. And I promise we can rest from that, step away from the continuous flow of information, and remain informed, engaged citizens of the world with compassion for others' needs and action against systems of injustice. In fact, we will be better at all that if our primary human connection is not a never-ending scroll of media content. We will be better humans to one another and the whole world if we take the necessary rest from that system to regulate our body's emotions. An inability to look away is not compassion. It is the numbness of trauma. We cannot pull empathy from an empty well. So when our souls are weary with the weight of the world's sorrow, we need to remember that what? Our bodies are the location of our liberation. And take the time to care for our own body, to do the slow, measured breathing that brings us into our inner selves, to say kind things to ourselves, to make offerings to the sacred site of our body, delicious food, comfortable repose, sweet music, fresh air, and maybe most importantly, deep connection. Filling that cup of social connection is vital for us to feel real rest. It is profoundly healing for humans to have in sight the faces that reassure us, to hear the voices that care for us, who offer structure and support and consistency to our lives, to touch others and be touched. It is particularly important for our body's regulatory systems, that which make us feel rested, for us to be in sync with others, to do synchronized activities like singing, dancing, praying, eating a meal. It affects us physiologically to be with one another in that way, to rise and sit in unison, to speak well-worn words together, to break bread, to sing, even badly, together. This is what makes our ongoing inaccessibility of our building so hard and heartbreaking right now. Because the world over, throughout our history as a species, people have chosen community over isolation, have chosen in all our different ways to make holy our being together. This is why we come to church. When we say, as Pastor Hersey has taught us, our bodies are the location of liberation, I want to warn us against adopting the wolf in sheep's clothing, that is the wellness industry's consumption under the guise of care. Rest is not a product we have to buy or a treat we earn by working. The blessing of real spiritual Sabbath rest is the gift of a boundary, of boundaries around our time, setting aside a time for rest and nothing else, a time for deep and spiritual rest, not for mindless media or product consumption, not for being home but checking email every hour. A Sabbath is a sacred, boundaried time. Those walls around our houses of rest are a gift that we can implement so that nothing, not even ourselves, can rob us of holy rest. How do we know it's meaningful rest and not empty wellness consumption? Our rest is good when it includes an orientation toward purpose, toward meaning. When we talk about finding purpose, I want us to be careful not to take that to mean finding ways to be more productive. We need the restfulness of reorienting toward our deeper purposes, our larger life calling. And maybe that's something that includes an end, a goal or a product or an achievement, but it might be as unproductive as orienting ourselves toward the purpose of joy and having a dance party in the living room. It might be with divine pointlessness that we orient toward curiosity and poke around in the woods for a bit, or toward the purpose of play and creativity and paint a perfectly terrible painting. All of that is good rest and not the least bit productive. When that other great prophet of our modern age, Mary Oliver, asked us what we would do with our one wild and precious life, she did not mean us to answer what all we'd produce in it, which goals we'd hurtle toward with ever greater exhaustion. Her answer, which we conveniently forget, although it appears just a few lines earlier in the same poem, is to be idle and blessed. I don't know exactly what a prayer is, she writes. I do know how to pay attention, how to fall down in the grass, how to kneel down in the grass, how to be idle and blessed, how to stroll through the fields, which is what I have been doing all day. Tell me, what else should I have done? May we, too, be stubborn enough to fill our days with such holy idleness. Amen. Will you join in body or in spirit risen in our closing hymn number 15, The Lone Wild Bird? Please remain standing if you are, as Trish extinguishes our chalice flame this morning. And let us read together the words printed on the screen. We extinguish this flame, but we keep its light in our hearts, with its message of love and justice, taking it outside these walls to the world we live in, until we are together again. As we close our service this morning, I invite you to place a hand over your heart. If you're joining online, I invite you to turn your settings to gallery view and look upon the faces of those here with you. For those of us in the room, let us take a moment to look around at those gathered here today. And I offer you these words from the Reverend Tricia Hersey as a benediction. I believe we have a magical opportunity to stop. There is power in our rest and in our ability to slow down for the sake of collective healing and mourning. It's time to rest. Amen. Everyone is invited to join us for coffee hour immediately after the service in the Clara Barton Lounge through the doors here and here just behind me, and we hope to see you there.
You gotta make the morning last, just kicking down the cobblestones, looking for fun and feeling groovy. Ba-da-da-da-da, feeling groovy. Hello, lamppost, what you knowin'? I've come to watch your flowers growing. Ain't you got no rhymes for me? Do-do-do-do, feeling groovy. I got no deeds to do, no promises to keep. I'm down